Hello, everyone. I'm Liane Jackson, Senior Law Editor at Forbes, and I am joined today by Jon-Jorge Aras, one of our legal analysts. And I'm really happy to have you with us today, Jon-Jorge. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
We have a lot to talk about because this week, Special Counsel Jack Smith has been very busy. He first filed a superseding indictment in the case against former President Donald Trump regarding the alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election. This superseding indictment was intended to clarify his previous case. Last month, the Supreme Court came out with a decision saying that presidents are a controversial decision, I might add, saying that presidents are immune from certain official acts. And this was a proactive attempt by the special counsel to try to cure that defect. I want you to talk a little bit about whether this was a good move, whether this was the best move to sort of try to head the issues off at the pass before even allowing Judge Chutkan to make decisions on the individual counts. What are your thoughts on his decision to take this route?
I think given the fact that Jack Smith clearly wants to go forward, right? The Department of Justice and him as special counsel are not giving up on these cases, even though the Supreme Court ruling was pretty strongly stating that a president in his capacity in any official act really has broad immunity, especially when the president is dealing with the Department of Justice. So what did Jack Smith do? He refashioned the indictment to cut it down. I think it was about 45 pages before. Now it's around 35 pages. And he took out a lot of references to the president's direct interactions with the Department of Justice and has really narrowed the case down and trying to focus on what former President Trump did as a candidate, as Jack Smith has termed it. He's trying to place former President Trump as a candidate who had a running mate in Mike Pence and acting in that capacity to now bring the same four charges that he originally brought. So it's a proactive move. He's trying to cut it down. So in front of the honorable judge, he's going to be able to make arguments to say, I've conformed with what the Supreme Court has put out there. I've put it into play that this is former President Trump acting in the capacity of essentially a citizen and not acting in the capacity of the president of the United States. I've abided by the ruling. The indictment moves forward, and this case should move forward. So I do think that it was a proactive move. I'm not sure that he had any real other options. His case was in jeopardy. I mean, there's no other way to say it. His case was in big jeopardy. And we know in the Florida case as well, the documents case, that case had been dismissed. So the way I view it is that Special Prosecutor Jack Smith is really trying to cobble together what he has left of his cases. And this was an opportunity for him to do that, albeit under the incredible weight of the Supreme Court decision, which was strong and really, I don't know if it expanded presidential immunity, but it made very clear that a president in his official acts is going to get widespread immunity for that conduct.
Well, a lot of experts have been concerned that it dangerously expands presidential immunity. Of course, that will be seen. We'll have to wait to see when the courts test that if this goes any further, if any presidents are again alleged to have broken the law or in situations such as this. But in the case of former President Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the election, Jack Smith is fashioning this as an untainted indictment, like a whole new, as you described it, sort of a whole new second bite at the apple, second chance. Is this a matter of semantics, or are we just going to have to wait and see what Judge Chutkan says? Of course, what Trump's team is going to say about this, and ultimately this is going to go back up on appeal. Is that what we can expect to happen next?
So as of tomorrow, the parties have been ordered to appear in front of Honorable Judge Chutkan to give essentially a briefing schedule or give an outline of what they're going to do. I suspect that former President Trump's defense team is going to come out and say, we would like to file papers to have this indictment dismissed for a litany of reasons, namely the Supreme Court's decision. And the judge wants to get a sense of, well, how are the parties going to schedule this and what are they going to do? One thing that we know for certain is that there is an extremely low to no likelihood whatsoever that this case would go to trial before the election. I think the indictment was filed about 69 or 70 days out before November 5th. So it is highly unlikely that we'll reach any sort of trial. I think you hit the nail on the head. We're going to see some briefing. This may be a situation where there is a dismissal. This may be a situation where there's an appeal by Trump's team if the indictment is going to move forward to invoke the Supreme Court's decision. Right now, the parties will appear in front of the judge and lay out their position and what they intend to do. And we'll know that as soon as tomorrow. But the main takeaway is there isn't a risk of a trial for former President Trump's defense team to occur before the November 5th election.
And you just referenced the other case, which likely no trial happening in any of the cases currently pending against him. And he has several still outstanding, federal and state, in Georgia. But you referenced the other case in the Southern District of Florida before Judge Liane Cannon. And she has challenged the existence of Jack Smith at all as special counsel, that he was improvidently appointed. He, this week as well, filed an appeal with the 11th Circuit, that, protesting against that, saying that, of course, he should be the special counsel on this case. Special counsel has been, something that has been utilized for decades. What are your thoughts about the 11th Circuit's decision on that? Of course, the timeline on when they would even decide, but do you think that his arguments hold weight, or that Judge Cannon may have been correct in her decision dismissing that case completely because of a special counsel being appointed in the wrong way, according to her?
Sure. I think Judge Cannon looked at the law maybe in a literal or more narrow way, saying that there's really not the statutory authority to appoint Jack Smith as special counsel, that the Attorney General does not have the authority to do that. I think Jack Smith is relying more on precedent, on, for lack of a better word, colloquial precedent, saying that this has occurred before, this is proper. The Attorney General, of course, has the power to do that. We've seen special counsels get appointed throughout American history. We have a close example in the Hunter Biden case where there was special counsel appointed, and the authority of that special counsel or that appointment was not challenged. Here, Judge Cannon did potentially go out on a limb to make that decision, but that decision now from a federal judge, he has to say that Jack Smith has to say that Judge Cannon erred, that misapplied the law. It's a very high standard. And if Judge Cannon had a firm basis for that in the opinion, it's not an easy argument to make. It is a legal argument to make. But Jack Smith is clearly trying to save what he has left of these cases and try to get them back on track, because really they've both been derailed. And former President Trump's defense team has done an extraordinary job of, one, not only delaying these trials. I mean, remember, a year ago, everything was on the fast track to get done before the election in a timely fashion. They have been delayed, and the legal challenges have been extremely effective in getting these cases essentially dismissed and out of the public view. Here we are again, about 60 some odd days out from the election, and they're coming back into focus as Jack Smith tries to salvage them.
Yes, Trump has benefited from these delays. He'll continue to benefit from these delays. And of course, Judge Liane Cannon was a Trump appointee, and the super majority of conservatives that he has on the Supreme Court he's also benefited from a number of rulings that have at the minimum served to delay the case to potentially well after the election. And to that point, what would happen if former President Trump was reelected and we had became President Trump again? What would happen to any of these federal cases and the state case that's outstanding in Georgia?
So as the president, whether or not Donald Trump has the power to end these investigations or end these cases against him and essentially pardon himself, I believe that's what he would do. Whether or not he has the full power to do that, it's slightly an unsettled issue. Presidents do have generally broad pardon power. For example, if current President Joe Biden's son was convicted, it's clear that he would have the power to pardon him. Whether or not the president has the power to pardon themselves is a slightly different question, but that's what I imagine would happen. Former President Trump would likely put an end to these cases. As for the state case, given that it's a state case and not a federal case, that also remains an unsettled question whether he could effectively end that by pardoning himself as president. I imagine that's what he would invoke, and the White House will have a legal team that will support that and say, this is proper, he can do it, he should do it, and there's precedent for it. But a president pardoning himself has not happened before, so it is an unsettled issue, even though presidential pardon power is widely recognized and it is powerful.
Well, much of the legal machinations that we've been watching have been unprecedented, and Special Counsel Jack Smith has significant challenges ahead of him, but he's been dogged in pursuing these cases. Jon-Jorge, would you like to handicap what you think is going to happen, or we can end on that, or do you have any other thoughts?
I'd be happy to. I think that in both cases, he is facing an uphill battle. It's never good to be on the back foot as he's on now. He had his original indictment. The Supreme Court came in and gave a lot of presidential powers acting in their official capacity. There are now numerous arguments that the defense team can draw on. And just from a public perspective, right? From looking at the case from a public perspective, it's lost a lot of steam. It doesn't feel like the same case that it was before. And that goes for the document case as well. It's never a good position when you're litigating a case to have already lost so early on that now you're on the back foot, you're appealing really just to get back to square one, right? These are not the arguments. This is not evidence. This isn't presenting a case. This is, hey, I should be allowed to have a case, period, right? I should be allowed to do that right out of the gates. So I do think that he's in a difficult position, but he has shown, as you stated, that he is willing to keep churning and he's going to keep pressing forward on them and not give up on these cases. So former President Trump and his defense team can't rest on their laurels. They have to push forward in both these jurisdictions.
We will see who becomes the real comeback kid in this scenario, whether it's special counsel or if former President Trump ultimately prevails. And right now, though, these legal cases are taking a little bit of a backseat to the political campaign. So that is going on, and we'll still be watching. And of course, Jon-Jorge, I hope you join us again soon for legal analysis.
I'd love to. Thank you so much.